You wake up to a flood of messages about something that happened overnight. A platform changed its algorithm. A brand said something it shouldn't have. A market shifted. Everyone is reacting. You want to understand what happened. In this lesson, you'll learn how to track breaking news, compare sources, and turn a research session into a structured report you can act on. You open the web to follow a breaking story. There are dozens of results from different outlets in different time periods. What's the most important thing to pay attention to? When each result was published, since stories change fast. Which outlet published it? Bigger publications are more accurate on breaking news. How many sources cover the same angle? Consensus signals the information is reliable. Searching for a breaking story without filters is like opening a firehouse. You get opinion pieces, outdated takes, and reactions to reactions, mixed in with the actual facts. The story gets harder to understand. Perplexity makes that easier. You can filter by date, compare perspectives, and verify claims in one place. Instead of switching between tabs, the first thing to add to any breaking news search is a date filter. Tracking breaking news. You learned how date operators work in Lesson 5. Here, they do the same job in a news context, restricting results to a specific window, whether that's the last 24 hours, last week, or last month. In a fast-moving story, that single addition keeps the results focused on today's development. Let's apply it to a news search. The search result pointed you to Instagram's official newsroom to confirm the announcement. What should you do? Ignore it. The search already returned current coverage. Note it and come back later. The search result is enough to start with. Follow it. That's where the original announcement lives. Perplexity, pointing you to additional sources, is the starting point for verification. One search gives you the shape of the story. Cross-checking the primary source is what confirms it. That's what the next step covers. Comparing perspectives. The same story reads differently, depending on who's telling it. Instagram's newsroom says the change helps creators. Analysts say it disrupts brands. Creators report mixed results on the ground. None of them is wrong. They're just seeing different parts of the same thing. So let's try pulling from more than one source. The divergence between Instagram's framing and the analyst's view is where the story lies. Platform announcements protect the platform. Analyst coverage reflects market implications. For any story with multiple affected groups, the gap between perspectives is what you need to understand before acting. Aside from searching directly, Perplexity has a Discover section in the left sidebar that surfaces trending news without any prompt. It includes For You, Top, and Topic categories like tech and science, entertainment, sports, and business, useful for staying on top of stories before they hit your inbox. Discover. News without searching. Checking what you find. Breaking news moves fast, and so do unverified claims. A citation tells you where a claim came from, not whether it held up. One result claims that accounts under 10,000 are seeing a 40% increase in reach. Before using that figure, it needs a check. See how Perplexity traced the claim back to third-party blogs, generalizing about small creator growth, with no Instagram-provided data behind it. The underlying trend has support. Smaller accounts are seeing better discoverability through topic matching and retention signals. That's the distinction. You carry the trend into your report. Hold off on the figure until primary data backs it. Building a trend report. You now have current results, multiple perspectives, and a verified account of what actually happened. You can build a structured summary that someone can read and act on without doing the research themselves. A LinkedIn post, a team briefing, or a client update, whatever the format, the research is already done. What makes Perplexity useful for news research? A better structured prompt makes the underlying data more reliable. Different source types come back in one search instead of opening separate tabs. Date filters keep results focused on what actually happened recently. Claims that lack a primary source get flagged, so you know what to verify. The most credible sources always appear at the top of the results. You can now track a breaking story, filter for what's current, check what you find, and turn the research into something your team can act on. But how do you know if a source can actually be trusted in the first place? That's what the next lesson covers. You'll learn how to evaluate source credibility and spot when information shouldn't be trusted before it ends up in something you've published. On to the next. Source credibility and verification. A statistic lands in your presentation. It sounds authoritative. It has a citation. But the citation links to a think tank funded by the company whose product it praises. In this lesson, you'll learn how to evaluate what you find before it ends up in something you've signed your name to. Not all sources are equal. A citation isn't the same as credibility. The question is whether the source behind the citation holds up, who published it, when, whether they had a stake in the conclusion, and how they got there. There are 4 things worth checking on any source: outlet credibility, who published it, and what their editorial standards are. Publication date, whether the data reflects current conditions. Independence, whether the publisher had a stake in the conclusion. Methodology, whether the research method is visible and sound. Miss one, and you might be building on something that looks solid but isn't. Imagine you find a statistic claiming that 78% of employees prefer hybrid work. Before using it in a presentation, which of these would matter when evaluating the source? Whether the statistic has been cited by other sources, popular claims are more likely to be accurate. When the data was collected, workforce preferences might shift with time. Who funded the research and whether they had an interest in the outcome. Whether the outlet is well known, major publications don't publish unverified statistics. Whether the methodology is described, sample size, how participants were selected, what question was asked. Auditing what Perplexity returns. Perplexity surfaces sources with every result, which means you can audit them directly without running a separate search. The fastest way to start is to ask Perplexity about the source and the claim. Let's try it. The search returned useful data, but also flagged exactly who funded it and where the methodology falls short. Go one step further and ask Perplexity to audit those sources directly. Perplexity flagged 4 problems with the hybrid work sources: sampling bias, funding bias, self-reported data, and outdated timing. None of that came from a separate search. One extra prompt on the same topic surfaced everything that would have made the statistic hard to defend. Why wasn't the first search enough on its own? The first search didn't return enough sources. More results would have surfaced the issues automatically. The first search returned the data, and the second revealed whether it can actually be used. The issues only appear when you search a different topic. The audit prompt reframes the question. That's the value of one extra prompt. Instead of using a figure you took at face value, you now know exactly where it's weak, and you can decide whether to replace it or cite it with appropriate caveats. Shifting results toward credible sources. Auditing what comes back is one approach. The other is making sure credible sources are more likely to appear in the first place. The operators from Lesson 5 do exactly that, now with credibility as the goal. Let's apply them to the same search. The site. Operator restricted results to Pew Research before the search ran. That's why a vendor-funded survey didn't appear. Credibility filtering is about deciding which sources are eligible in the first place. One operator, applied with credibility as the goal, changes the entire source pool. Now, there's one more step before any figure goes into a deliverable. Let's check the Pew figure from the previous search. Two independent sources arriving at the same figure through different research is what makes a claim defensible. It's about finding sources that got there separately. One confirms the data exists, and two confirm it holds up. Why this matters before sign-off. That standard applies to every figure that ends up in front of someone who will question it. The audit process is what makes that judgment defensible, not just to yourself, but to anyone who asks where the number came from. And Perplexity compresses that audit into one session. Limitations check, operator-filtered sources, and cross-reference all in one place. You're presenting market research to your leadership team. How does going through a credibility verification process protect you? It means you can answer, "Where did this come from?" without hesitation. It replaces weak sources with stronger ones before anyone else notices the gap. It removes figures that look credible but would fall apart under basic scrutiny. It means you don't need to disclose methodology. The verification process covers it. It guarantees the figures in your presentation are accurate. Nice work. You now know how to evaluate what you find before it ends up in something consequential. Next up, academic research. You'll learn how to reach peer-reviewed studies and institutional data that most people don't know how to find. See you there. Academic research. You need to write a research paper, but every search brings back blogs, forum threads, and LinkedIn articles. The original studies are out there, they just don't compete well against content that's easier to read and more widely linked. In this lesson, you'll write one from scratch using Perplexity, verify every source before it goes in, and produce something ready to submit. You're writing a research paper on the health benefits of walking. You find a promising statistic on a wellness blog, but you're not sure if it comes from a real study. What's the core problem? The study probably doesn't exist. Blogs rarely reference real academic sources. You didn't search specifically enough to find the primary source directly. The blog cites a study, but a standard search has no reason to surface the original over the summary. That's a common problem when writing a research paper. You find the claim, but tracing it back to a credible primary source takes time. Perplexity has a dedicated mode that fixes exactly this. Let's find what it looks like and where to find it. Academic Focus Mode. Academic Focus Mode is a source filter you switch on before running your search. It shifts the entire source pool toward peer-reviewed journals, institutional publications, and authoritative research. Inside, you'll find prepared topic areas: health, technology, law, science, and humanities, along with trending topics in each field. It's useful anytime you need citable evidence, essays, reports, literature reviews, or any claim that needs to stand up to scrutiny. Let's say you're writing a research paper on the impact of walking daily on health. You only see a section, but Academic Focus returned a full structured research paper built entirely on peer-reviewed sources. It includes authors, journals, and publication dates with 53 sources. The same request in standard search would have pulled from health blogs and news articles. Imagine the research paper includes a study from 2024, published in a journal you don't recognize. What do you need to check before citing it? Publication date and journal credibility. Whether the study has been cited by other papers. The sample size and methodology. Verify publication date and journal. Before the paper goes anywhere, every cited source needs two checks: the publication date and the journal it came from. A study from several years ago may have been updated or challenged since, and a journal you don't recognize may not carry the credibility the citation implies. For your research paper, Perplexity used Emmanuel Stamatakis' 2015 study. Let's verify it before citing it. Perplexity confirmed the journal is credible, but the study has been updated by the same author with more recent findings. You have both studies available. Which one should you cite for a current claim? Both. Showing the evolution of the research demonstrates more thorough scholarship. The updated study, it reflects current conditions and supersedes the original. The original, it's the foundational source, and the update builds on it. Check whether findings have been updated. Correct. A verified source is not necessarily the most current version of the evidence. Authors update their own findings. Other researchers challenge or refine them. Before the paper is final, it's worth checking whether anything has superseded what's already cited. Let's run a currency check on the sources. Publication dates confirmed, journals verified, findings current. The sources are solid, but solid sources don't guarantee a clean paper. Before saving, run one more check. Final check before saving. Run one more prompt in Perplexity to catch what the research process doesn't: unclear phrasing, unsupported claims, or sections that need a stronger source. The same tool that found the sources can check whether they've been used correctly. Great. One issue caught before submission, a phrasing problem. Once fixed, the paper is ready. When you're done, Perplexity lets you export the result as a PDF, Word document, shareable link, or copy it straight into whatever editor you're working in. How does Perplexity improve the research paper process compared to doing it manually? Perplexity guarantees every source it surfaces is accurate and up to date. The currency check flags whether findings have been superseded. You can verify journal credibility and publication date in one prompt. Academic focus mode surfaces peer-reviewed sources directly. Well done. You've just written and verified a full research paper from scratch. Before wrapping up, let's retrace the steps you took to get there. You can now write a research paper, verify every source, and produce a submission-ready output in a single session. The final lesson of the guide brings everything together. You'll apply the full toolkit from this course to a clean report writing, ready to wrap it up. Report writing with Perplexity. You have the research. Now, someone asks you to turn it into a report by the end of the day. Getting the information was the easy part. The harder part is structuring it into something people will actually read and act on. In this final lesson, you'll learn how to do exactly that. Let's finish strong. You ask Perplexity for a report on the health benefits of daily walking. It comes back well written, but with no headers or clear sections. What did you forget to add to the prompt? A source restriction and filters. More context about the topic. Structure, format, and citation instructions. You caught it. The prompt didn't specify how to structure the report, format it, or attribute the claims. Ask for all three up front, and the output arrives ready to use. Let's build it that way. Structure with 5 W's and H. The fastest way to guarantee complete coverage in any report is to use what we covered, the 5 W's and H as your scaffold. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. When applied to a report prompt, they tell Perplexity exactly which dimensions to cover, so nothing important gets left out. Every dimension covered, every claim attributed. Output already formatted with headers. That required no editing. The structure came from the prompt. What do you think would make the report even more useful for a senior stakeholder who needs a quick read to get the full picture? Subheadings within each section. A summary table. A single short paragraph overviewing the report in the beginning. Add a summary table. Yes. A summary table at the end of a report gives readers who won't read every section exactly what they need. Key findings at a glance. Let's request it directly in the prompt. Perplexity added the table at the end of the report. Every key finding from each section pulled into one view, with sources alongside. That's the report working for two audiences at once. The full document for anyone who wants to go into detail, and the table for anyone who needs the answer in 30 seconds. Now, there's one more format worth having before the report goes anywhere. Synthesize into a one-page output. The full report covers everything. A one-page synthesis in a fixed format. Situation, findings, risks, recommendation, gives decision makers exactly what they need without requiring them to read the full document. Let's do it. In which of these situations is it the right call to ask Perplexity to synthesize a report into a one-page output? A board presentation where the audience will scrutinize the methodology and challenge the data. A senior stakeholder needs a quick update before a decision meeting. A client wants a high-level brief before commissioning deeper research. A regulatory submission where every claim needs to trace back to a primary source. Format follows audience. That's the rule that runs through everything in this lesson. The 5 W's and H covered the content. The summary table made it scannable. The synthesis made it decision-ready. The report is done. Structured, cited, verified, and formatted for whoever is reading it. That's everything the prompt controlled, and nothing that needed fixing afterward. Before wrapping up the course, let's recap what you've learned across this unit through a quick test. Course complete. With that, you've completed the full Perplexity course. Excellent job. You've learned to search with precision, verify what you find, write research papers with credible sources, and produce structured reports ready for distribution. The question now is not what Perplexity can do. It's what you'll research with it. Start searching smarter. See you there.